Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.
Good evening and welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and excited to be here with you once again on Tuesday evening. Thanks again for joining in, and excited about having a great show. Good evening. How's it going? Paula, Darren, how's it going? Welcome, and everybody else. I'm looking forward to having a great show. Always appreciate everybody tuning in. We welcome your comments. We welcome your questions. And we're looking forward to having a great show. At the end of the day, as a business owner, the key to your success is going to be how well you can lead your organization, because your organization couldn't only go as far as you're prepared to lead it. So that's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, where I have some great guests, and we just have a conversation about things that, it's important for you as a business leader to have greater perspective, greater knowledge, greater understanding, so you can be the best leader possible. So, really looking forward to talking to our guest tonight. Our show tonight is about unleashing your potential and winning at a higher level. I think that, a lot of times we don't focus on winning at the level that we have the potential to win at. And also many times we may want to win at a higher level, but really don't know how. So, I think this evening's conversation should be really helpful for you. Our guest tonight is Justin Lund, and that's really what he helps people to do. So I'm really excited about chatting with him further about that. And, always appreciate your comments and questions, and let's make it interactive. Hey, Justin, how you doing tonight?
Good, Andrew. How are you?
I'm excellent. Thanks for joining me. And, definitely been looking forward to having a chance to sit down with you this evening.
Yeah, same. Thanks for having me.
Okay, excellent. So, you've done a lot and you're doing a lot. So I don't think I could give justice to it. So what I'd like for you to do is just share a little bit about your journey, how you got to where you are and a couple of key milestones along the way before we dig in and really chat about the topic, because I think just that perspective and people can just learn from your journey.
You bet. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I'd love to. So I'll go back to some of my younger years when I was putting myself through college on a sales job, and had a cute girlfriend at the time that we had an unexpected gift arrive into our lives a little earlier than we had anticipated. So that sales job became my career, and I kind of shortcut some of my schooling to go full-time into sales, which I enjoyed, had kind of a knack for it. With a new bun in the oven and a child on the way, I needed to provide a family. I was young, 22, maybe 23, 22. And in that sales environment, I had some struggles that I had to work through with addiction. There was it was a high pressured, high paced environment there. And that kind of was a characteristic of the job of the sales floor, if you will. And that put me into a situation that I had to really fight for my life to get out of that. Over a few years of trying to fight through that struggle, I was fortunate enough to land in a facility that helps people to overcome things like that, which is where I started learning the power of frameworks, mental models specifically, in my case, like models for me, which really resonated with me because I've always been into the Tony Robbins and the kind of the motivational. I, in fact, used a lot of those things in my sales pitch. That's how I would sell. And that time there, I was in there for 6 weeks, and that time there to learn all about me. This is not like reading a book on the nightstand. I mean, all day long, I'm working with doctors and therapists and going through this process and really learning why I was doing some of the things that I was doing and really redirecting all my mental resources and faculties to come back into trying to get my crap together, if you will. And it was quite an ordeal. I mean, that was probably the most scary experience of my life up to that point, but there's more that are coming. But from there, I was able to leave that facility and go out and start a business from that point. And over the next couple of years, built it into an 8-figure company, and did just really well. And I really attribute a lot of that success to some of the frameworks that I picked up there, those models that helped me and that I still use today and I still coach some of my clients with today, even though they may not be addicted to drugs or anything like that. But and some of them are, to be honest, but that's okay because some of these frameworks are scalable and they work in people's life, because anything with addiction is often not the substance itself that people are struggling with. It's most often it's the thing that they're trying to avoid facing. And that applies so much in business. I found there's things that we don't address because it's meeting a need somewhere. And that's what I like working through with people. Oftentimes I work with founders that reach a point where they just feel stuck. They're trapped in this place where they're not able to go forward. And it just feels like there is no escape route, right? There's the profitability may be shrinking, the problems seem to be growing, and it's hard to find what is the next best step forward. So diving into that and pulling out some of those frameworks is something that I love to do with people. That journey continued to unfold as I got into things started to take off definitely better than I would have expected only a few short years before that from that rehabilitation center for sure. And I brought some people in to help me with areas that were, I guess, challenging to me, or maybe things that I just felt like I was out of my depth, to be completely honest, Andrew. Like when you got into the numbers, and we're talking about 8 figures of revenue coming in, it kind of scared me, and so I started bringing people in saying like, I'm really good over here, but I'm not so good over there. And I know that I'm going to have tax issues and I've got a lot to juggle and things that I've got to really keep a lot of balls up in the air. And, at this point I'm 25, 6, 7 in that range. And I felt like I was in over my head. I brought in some good people. I brought in some people that were not so good. Some of them saw me as a good mark that kind of took that opportunity to really start siphoning a lot of cash off the books. And over the course of the next few years, tens of millions of dollars, which led me into the next big pivotal moment, which is where I had to really fight again for my life, because as part of that kind of the swindling that was going on, the taxes weren't paid. And that was my partner's job in this endeavor, is to manage all these things that I wasn't good at, and these numbers and these things were kind of intimidating for me. But he filed tax returns that were grossly understating revenue and income. And that left me with another challenge that I was facing, that I needed to now go fix all this problem. And I had to fight through that process with 4.5 years of litigation. And it's kind of ironic because all the litigation and everything that I did on a daily basis for 4.5 years were numbers, spreadsheets, P&Ls, financial statements. Like I had to go through all those things that I hated doing that weren't my strong suit and piece together the previous 5, 6, 7 years in like granular detail as possible. I started learning a lot more lessons through that chapter of my life. There was a lot of complexity there. Part of kind of the swindle was just complicated schemes of, I think we uncovered, with forensic accountants and all kinds of professionals working through this process, something like 250, 220 LLCs that money was going off to. They were just shell organizations created to have vendor payments going out the door that were just below the radar, but over the years added up to a lot. So all this complexity was another thing that it taught me these lessons that simple scales, complex fails. And it was just again, another master's degree basically, and just going through these kind of life lessons. So that was quite a challenge, the next massive challenge. And it was in the midst of that challenge that I was going through. And Andrew, with all that money gone and all these, I had to deal with the IRS, I had to deal with the Department of Treasury, a lot.
Definitely not fun.
Yeah.
And just as a reminder, taxes are due tomorrow if you.
That's right. That is correct.
Yeah, I'll let you finish.
So in the middle of that, there was another opportunity that was born, I guess, if you will. A friend of mine who was more of a free-spirited entrepreneur, maybe more like myself, she called me in the midst of that and said, don't you have a lot of professionals and people like that working for you? Could you help me with, I want to set up a new business, and it's me and I've got one employee that I want to hire, but I don't know how to do payroll. I don't know how to do any of that stuff. Could you just help me with that? And so we did, because I had 7 or 8 accountants and forensic accountants and tax attorneys. So that was nothing. It was just an easy thing to help her set up an entity and do payroll twice a month. Well, she told 4 or 5 of her friends, and they all called, and then they told their friends, and they all called. We didn't have a website. We didn't have an entity set up to manage this. And we were doing over 50 people's books and records. Some of them were just simple payroll here and there. Some were like our full outsourced accounting team. And we just kind of stumbled into that. That was totally accidental, but I loved it. And don't get me wrong, Andrew, I don't jump, you don't see me jumping into an Excel spreadsheet to have a good time. I'm not saying that's, it wasn't that kind of a transformation, but I did love the transition that took place in helping her and then her friends. I began to have the opportunity to communicate with these founders, with these entrepreneurs, with these often artists. When somebody starts a business, it's more like an art form. Like they're doing things because they love it, because they're creating, they're building. It's very, very seldom that somebody starts a business because they're damn good at business. You know what I mean? That's an afterthought, if anything. So I really started to light up, and thank goodness, because 4.5 years in litigation is about enough to kill a guy. But I had this little light that started to shine in the midst of that dark period for me. And that was working with these other founders and these entrepreneurs and helping them to recognize, basically, don't make the same stupid mistakes that I am. Yes, we can help you with your admin stuff. We can do your payroll. I can help you with your books and all that stuff. But you need to have an awareness of your numbers. You need to have, that doesn't mean you need a master's degree. You don't need to go out and become an accountant, but you need to have some awareness about what's going on. Or the worst case scenario is this guy. Okay. There's a lot of other scenarios, but trust me, you don't want the worst case scenario. So from that, we built a business around bookkeeping and doing some tax strategy, not really tax preparation, but some strategy, and getting into a lot of those kind of admin side of things so that business owners could really focus on doing their art, the thing that lights them up. And then I got more and more into coaching over the years and helping people to kind of evolve their business plan and remove some of those capacity ceilings that invariably come up. Like if you're scaling and you start a business with 1, 2, 3 people, and you keep growing and growing and growing, you are going to run into what I call a capacity ceiling somewhere. Your ability, like you mentioned in your intro, your ability to lead people, It's often a massively overlooked skill when somebody's scaling a business. And if you think about it, I mean, it checks out. When you grow to a certain point, soon your art form, now this thing that you started to do, is no longer the primary driver of your success. It then becomes your ability to manage human resources. So at what point do you stop and reallocate time on your calendar to come back and learn the skill of managing people, motivating people, leading people? If you don't, you're going to find a lot of tension and capacities kind of bearing down on you as that growth continues to climb.
Okay, excellent. Well, you shared some tremendous stuff. So I do want to go back over a few of the things just to make sure the full lessons is shared and just to ask you a little bit more about it. But, I do like what you said about frameworks and how helpful they can be. Mm-hmm. But, I like to break it down to the essence. So what is a framework and why are they so helpful?
Yeah, so a framework, I would say you could call it a system too. A lot of people will say, I need systems for my business. I don't have any systems in my business. So that I kind of use those terms interchangeably. And that's basically, so if a system, I like the word system as an acronym for saves yourself time, energy, money, right? Anything that does that. So I would tell anybody watching, listening here, it doesn't need to be complicated. In fact, the best systems aren't that complicated. So don't make complexity a requirement by any means. In fact, that could really screw you if you do, because us entrepreneurs tend to be pretty good at making things complicated. I'll be honest. So a framework or a system is anything that can save you money. It can save you time. I'll give you a really stupid example, but a very effective one. I wanted to get in shape this year. So I started going through kind of my goal setting process of how I break things down. And it was at the kind of the ribbing of my kids. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to show you punks that this old man still has it. I can whip myself into shape. And I recognized that after just a few days, maybe a week or two, that I was in my closet in the morning early and I'm trying to decide, like, I'm going to do this. No, I got to get my phone. What's in my schedule? Can I go to the gym today? So here I am having a conversation, balancing things at 5 o'clock in the morning. Not my best state, not my most motivated. And I surprisingly find a lot of reasons why that wasn't going to work this morning. And maybe later tonight I could get to it, right? And after looking back after a couple of weeks and recognizing that my batting average here and getting to the gym and doing some of the things that I would need to do is not that great, I needed to make a change. So I developed a system, something that I tied this system to another one that I already have that is infallible. Like it's there. I've been brushing my teeth as soon as I wake up for I don't know how long, decades. So I don't think about that one. That's automatic. So I set my gym clothes right next to the toothbrush. And I do that the night before. I don't think about it. I get up. Sometimes, honestly, I would change them later and not go to the gym. But my batting average tripled just with that one system. So that's a very basic, but also kind of a good visual that you can think about, that it doesn't need to be a complicated thing if it gets results. So anything that we can get some results from, that's a good system or a framework that you can use to kind of get some leverage.
Okay. So, you talked about, keep it simple. And that's a great example of, it doesn't have to be complex, even business. At the end of the day, if you're in, to have a successful business, all you got to do is be able to provide something that solves somebody else's need, want, and desire that they're willing to pay for, and that you can deliver it for less than they're willing to pay for it.
Yep.
That's all the businesses, you talked about, I didn't need a website. I didn't, I could do business without that,
Yep.
Business best practices are best practices. The tools may change, but at the end of the day, you can grow a business without being online. There's a lot of different ways to grow. So it's important to keep that in mind. Now, when you went away, you had a chance to focus on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think to be a good leader, the first person you have to lead is yourself. So, given that you ended up where you were, you weren't leading yourself real well. So make that transformation.
Yes. Yeah. So, sorry, was the question, what was that transformation?
Yeah. How did you transform as a leader?
Well, it started with a desire. I really wanted to be done with that. And that burning desire that, I was at a point where I thought, okay, if this is overcomeable, I want to overcome it. And since I want to so deeply, and it's such burning desire, I had just had my second child. So I have a baby, I have a 2-year-old, and I knew that life was just going to ruin everything that was precious to me and just growing, And so I had these motivating factors. I had a burning desire, and then I didn't have the skills, though. I didn't have the resources. And that's where I was just reacting to everything. So I think you can compare that to business. We sometimes as founders get caught in a trap where it just feels like we go on vacation and we can't get off of our phone or a laptop. So in this case, I'm always reacting to whatever's coming at me. I'm trying to make sales. I'm trying to support a family, trying to keep a fairly new wife happy and make her think that she made a decent choice with me, and that wasn't looking good so far. So I really need to make some good changes there. And by really diving into it, and you hit the nail on the head, Andrew, it was being able to focus on me, being able to go away and tune those distractions out. And I think, I have some ideas about that. And I used to do that after, even years later, I'd call it hit the eject button, and I would just take off for 3-4 days and leave, turn off the phone, go into a hotel where nobody knew where I was except my wife. And I would just kind of get my mind clear again. And then again, I had some systems in place. I had some people in place to help manage that. So that was an option. But having that ability to just get focused and clear on me with help, right? That was the other key. And I tell my team this all the time. We have a goal right now, Andrew. We're trying to reach 50,000 business owners. We want to help just share some of our tools, knowledge, message with 50,000 business owners. The only way you can do that is that scale is through content. And so I'm talking to my little team here, and we're trying to figure out, can we come up with this reel or that video or these kinds of things? And I remind them almost daily that if you think the answer to this question of how to reach 50,000 business owners is going to be answered in this circle, we're all doomed, because none of us have ever done it before. So we have got to stop asking how and start asking who can help us do that, so that we can find the videographers that have done just that thing before, and we can find the content. That's a big hack that I've learned, is just the who. You can replace how with who so many times and make a phone call. That's such a key. So having that ability to go in and, at the time, just honestly, it wasn't this strong-willed choice that I had. I was compelled legally that's where I needed to go to try to stay out of some serious trouble. But thank goodness it was God's grace that got me there and landed me there. But the desire then had the space to really get into that transformation and learn how to create these frameworks and how to take the stimulus that I was getting and run it through different response models based on what I actually wanted to accomplish, instead of just reacting to the moment.
Yep.
And, one of the things I just want to add, one final thought there, probably the biggest, most powerful lesson that I learned in those 6 weeks is we all make our goals based on the ideal scenario, right? All you business owners out there, you're setting goals, you're setting quarterly expectations and plans, or even if it's just the back of the napkin or envelope kind of calculations. It's all based on best case scenarios. What rehab taught me that I bring into business, that I brought into my life in every aspect of, is to plan for the worst day too. To know what your triggers are, know what's likely to come, and how am I going to just think that through for a second, for what could I do to reduce the potential drag on me or my team, or in whatever scenario, to have some preparation for that in advance. Absolute game changer.
Okay, excellent. So we've got some questions here.
Yeah,
so I wanted to
popping up.
I guess the first one here, the last shall be first. So the last question we got is, how do you stay motivated when you're growing multiple businesses?
Very good question. I would say that if you're not at 7 figures and profitable, that you really want to inspect whether or not you should have multiple businesses. And like I said, us entrepreneurs are very, very good at creating complexity. It's our default. My wife always reminds me of this, that sometimes my solutions to things, like the reaction, is not the most simple and straightforward method. I think of starting up a business, and within an hour of thinking it with a pen, I've got 6 businesses mapped out, and this one's going to serve this one, and this will bring these leads in, and this will, it's just, we can create all this complexity. So if you're trying to juggle too many things, I would say take a look at it. And if you have one rich uncle of a business that's taking care of all the other stepchildren businesses because of its profitability, get rid of the stepchildren and really get good at delegating. Really get good at getting this clarity on this one, and then focus on your people management skills. And that's how you can then create some of those systems that now you can pull out and bring people in to help manage and create some leadership in the first organization and start moving into these other organizations. But usually what I see, and Matt, I don't know if this is hitting your question or not, but most of the questions that I get about multiple businesses are because people shouldn't have multiple businesses. They've got one doing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and then one doing 50, one doing 250. One hopefully is going to break 7 figures, but it's just getting started. It's just often a smoke screen for just going deep. And I think we should go deep in one. And sometimes that's a tough thing to do, but then that's what's going to give you the skills, particularly if you focus on delegating in the right order. That's another massive problem I see with entrepreneurs is we hire out, we're problem solvers. So we see a problem out in the marketplace. We feel like we could create a solution for it. And again, this is where my wife and other people like her they admire entrepreneurs like us, because we'll get up with no awareness or knowledge of where we're going for the day and drive forward like our life depends on it. and we don't have to. And there's she tells me this all the time. She's like, I don't know how you don't just get up and go sit on the couch and do nothing. Like if I had, that's what I would do. She says, I don't have that kind of drive. And for you to drive yourself like that, but there's a negative to that. There's a yin to that yang. And that is that we will sometimes see solutions through rose-colored lenses. So when we're feeling the strain or the stress of a complexity ceiling bearing down on us, sometimes we'll start getting we'll fantasize about a solution. Like, well, there's a unicorn out there somewhere in the wild, and he's going to be my operator. She'll solve all the problems if I just find the right person. And what we do is kind of akin to that old MacGyver TV shows. We start thinking that we just need a piece of duct tape, a toothpick, and a paperclip. We'll solve any problem. Humans are a little more complicated than things. And when we start trying to put that person in place to solve all those problems before we've learned the skill of management and delegation, usually it's just going to pull money off the balance sheet because we're paying somebody out of order. We don't have the skills or the resources to pay them or train them the right way. So we bring in a 6-figure salary when we may not be ready for that.
Oh, great response. I mean, I think it's so important to focus. And I see so many business owners, starting another business when their current business isn't even performing. Mm-hmm. And, so that's really important. And also just some business owners, I always say that, every different target market you have is really a different business. So you almost need a different business plan and separate marketing plan for each. Yep. So, you could inadvertently think you're doing one business and really trying to run 4.
Yeah.
So, definitely focusing, stepping back is key because, if you just give a little bit to each thing, you're not going to move forward the same way as if you focus on it. So
And think of the even just the administrative stuff. I mean, you mentioned tomorrow's tax deadline day just for personal tax returns, but 30 days ago was the entity's deadline for an extension. And so you start one business and then you decide that you need 3 or 4 or 5 more, and you have these multiple businesses. Now you've got 3 or 4 tax returns to file. So that's what, $2,000, $3,000 each one. So now you're spending more. You've got more calls with the accountant to get the tax returns done. You've got more books, more QuickBooks subscriptions to pay for. Like, it's just, it seems, I know this because I do this all the time. Like, I'm literally like smacking my own hands every day because I think that way. That's how I know this to be true. But when we can just hone in and get focused on and go deep on one, the reason that I am this way, I think, because back in those years that I've just been describing, we built this business up to doing high 8 figures. We were $47, $55 million. And at that point, we started up other companies. And one company to support this one, and then it got customers, and it had its own business plan, and it had its own. And we would even share some of the employees in between these entities, where somebody would go downstairs. We had this whole building. Downstairs, they'd work for the morning, and they'd come upstairs and work in this department in the afternoon. And we would track time, and the whole thing, it worked. But, we were doing almost 9 figures a year of revenue. We had 98 employees at that time. There was 12 managers just to manage people in the different divisions and departments. So at that point, we had, 13, 14 different entities operating, I think, at one point. So when I got back into build mode and wanted to do it again, guess what I did? I set up 14 new entities. Well, maybe not that many, but like 5 or 6, thinking, well, this one can do this and this one can do that. The problem is not one of them had any revenue except our accounting business that was doing books and records and coaching. So all these companies still needed to have renewals filed with the state of Delaware, still needed to have all these things done. So we had to have a full-time person just to do the dumb stuff that just to keep. And honestly, we didn't even get it all right. We had late fees in certain entities for not being filed on time. And that's when I just realized, what are we doing? We spent a year chasing our tail to try to keep 6 or 7 entities up, active, and alive. Just to get a bank account is this much paperwork now, It just isn't worth it. So if the question is based on that, like, DM me on Instagram or something. Let me help you get clear and focused on one vertical where you can go deep. But then as soon as you get to a point where the revenue can support it, get your time back. Don't try to grow the profits. Get your time back so that you can now start that second business. Because if you can do it with some clarity, just like in my days of going off to hotel rooms or rehabs, it was the time that I needed to get clear without my phone ringing, without all the deadlines and the everything sucking my attention away. So clarity is power.
Yep. And also, if you can't get away, that means your business isn't ready for you to do something else. You need to work on your leadership of that business.
You got it.
So yeah,
I think that is a perfect litmus test for owner operator, right? Which one are you being more of, the owner or the operator? And when we start a business, especially if it's a one man or woman gig, like when we start out a solo gig, we're all of the above. But as you grow, that pattern, those habits of being all the above tend to stick around and they follow us as we get bigger and bigger. So you have to be very deliberate in letting go of the operator's mentality, habits, the way you use time, how you delegate, and you have to get into more of the owner role because owning a business does not require time. Not very much anyway. Like if you really, it sure as hell doesn't take 40 hours a week, not even close. But you do have to have the right systems in place, or that means you are the operator, which is a job that you own that has high liability, probably some good pay, I hope, but it's still a job.
Yeah. So definitely, that's key. We got quite a few questions about capacity, so I'm going to group them together.
Okay.
So one piece about how do you realize you're hitting your capacity ceiling? But let me just go pull them all up real quick first.
Okay.
And then we look at from Clive, what's the most common capacity ceiling that entrepreneurs face? So, and then, how do you know it's time to delegate tasks? Because usually you're the bottleneck, and then, systems as a solution, but, how can you implement systems with a small team? So, I know that's a lot, but we'll just tackle a little bit at a time. I figure I'd just make sure we got everybody's question addressed.
Yeah, I think I can lump kind of the first few together and hit all those. And then that last one, maybe I'll come back and remind me of that one again, because that one's just a little bit different than some of the others, but I can jump into that.
Okay.
How do you know what your capacity ceiling is, and how do you know when you've hit it? It's usually in how you feel. Okay. If you're feeling trapped, if you are feeling like your phone rings all the time, if you're feeling that you're working a lot more and you're getting paid less or the same, you are experiencing that capacity, that ceiling. And I can tell you maybe a little story to kind of illustrate what that might look like if you can put it through your own lens of your business and your role in the business or roles in the business. Imagine somebody who bakes a really good cookie. Okay. They start a business because they love to bake cookies, and they bake cookies that are damn good. Like they're in the kitchen, they get the hat on, the apron, the flour, and the sugar is going all over the place. And after being told by dozens and dozens of friends and family over and over again, these are so good, you should sell these, they finally take heed and decide that they're going to hang out their shingle and open up shop and sell cookies. At first, they love it because they are the artist, right? It's more, like I said before, it's like more of an art form. They are working on their craft. They love their craft, and they take the cookies out and they deliver them, and the people love them, and they keep getting repeat orders over and over again. So you've got a good product or service. You keep getting the repeat business, but then you start growing. And now pretty soon you're running out of time. So what is a big telltale sign that you're reaching that ceiling? Your time. What does your calendar look like? When was the last time you went on vacation? And did you actually vacation, or were you just working somewhere else while the kids were in the pool? So those are kind of questions you can look at. Now, with that capacity ceiling, as your time is getting like taxed more, pretty soon this baker, this person that just loves to bake cookies and they're really good at it, all of a sudden they have to hire some people. So then they've got to learn about like 941 quarterly or monthly federal tax returns. They need to be filed with every employee with payroll. They have to learn about different business bank accounts. They have to learn about making payments to the Treasury, making payments to the state. They have to learn about OSHA standards, and they have to learn about workers' comp, and they have to learn that none of this stuff has anything to do with baking cookies, right? So what tends to happen is they divert. Well, often entrepreneurs will think, I just need somebody else to bake the cookies so I can do all this stuff. And that's the wrong thing to do, because the reason your business is successful, the reason that you got started is because you love to bake cookies and you're really good at it. So stay in your lane, stay where you do well, and bring people in to delegate some of the administrative tasks, because that's where you can learn the strategies and the tactics and the skills of delegating tasks to other humans and how to manage them. And you can get it wrong a little bit. You can go through a couple employees if you screw it up, like it's not that big a deal. Now, turn that story around and you bring in somebody to bake cookies and they screw it up and they have their own ideas of what the cookie should taste like. You lose all your customers with one mistake because nobody wants the cookie anymore. But if somebody doesn't file the 941 return on time and you have to pay a couple $100 in a late fee, maybe not the end of the world, right? It's not good, but you learn from that. You learn, you adjust, you find better people, you find a better process, you build better systems, and you keep going on. All the while, your cookie sales can continue to climb, right? So the most common That kind of gets me into the most common of these capacity ceilings, which is administrative stuff. Most people just can't let go. And that happens because they often started out alone or with one or two people. And now they've got a team of 10 and they're still doing everything. So anything that gets done has to meet the boss's approval. He or she has to sign off on it, which by very definition, you are the bottleneck. Everything has to go through you. So when is it time? That'll get me right into the third part of this question is when is it time to delegate? As soon as you feel the pressure and the money. So I'm going to get into the money part of it. But first, the pressure. When the time that you have is continually going up and up and up at work, but it's especially if profits don't correlate with that increased time. And I would say even, it's not even that great to have even if you make $1 million a year, if all you do is work, that's not that great. I mean, it's not that bad, but it's not that great either, because if you could make $1 million a year and work 25 hours doing the things that you love and then start thinking about some ideas to then start your second business, if that's what you want to do, that's where you want to get to. So the time to delegate is when your calendar just feels packed and overwhelmed. That signal, and then you need to follow. I have a process that I work through with people called the Delegation Priority Pyramid. Okay. And I put this together to help entrepreneurs after years of seeing them jump up and hire leadership people or sales people or marketing people before they start delegating administrative stuff. And if you think about that, I mean, you could find a virtual assistant offshore for $5 to $20 an hour. You could find somebody local to sit right next to you for $25 an hour who may play at the very things that you work hard at and hate. Like I said, spreadsheets are not my jam. I got a girl that works for me in the office down the hall, and every problem that I take, every question that I have for her, I ask her something, she opens Microsoft Excel. Like that's the default. And it perplexes me because I do everything that I can in my power to never open a spreadsheet if I don't have to. I mean, it's just not fun for me to go in there. I use them. It's fine. I'm being a little dramatic here, but truly, if I say, hey, what could we do for like a company barbecue and just get together, up comes a spreadsheet. I'm like, what's wrong with you? But I'm just kidding, because I love that that's where her brain goes. It is not where my brain goes. I go into other things. I grab a sheet of paper that's this big so I can scratch some things on, and then I jump on the whiteboard over there and I want to draw. It doesn't look good, but that's how I can get my creative outlets out to build the ideas that I have. She puts it all into a spreadsheet, makes it look good so that the rest of everybody else can read it and make sense of it. So that's how you start. You go up that priority pyramid of delegation. You start at admin, then you go up into delivery and fulfillment. Then you get into the marketing and then the sales and then the leadership. But you follow that order just like building a home or a structure. You don't start with the roof and then try to build down. You start underground and you give it a firm foundation. From there, you can start going vertical. You can build things on top of that. So, the other thing that I like to do with people to give, so one of the questions there was something around like how to do it if I have a small team and I don't have a bunch of money. I'm kind of paraphrasing, but here's a really good indicator for what to delegate and how, and how you can look at this process. So one of my clients was running an agency and she was bringing in a decent amount of money, but always broke, and cash flow was problems. They had nobody in their office that was good with numbers or spreadsheets or any of the finances. So all these problems continue to stack up and just wasn't getting anywhere. And I got to work with her and started going through this process of seeing like, what do you do? And figuring out how she's spending her time. And she just felt overwhelmed with work, totally taxed and stretched at burning the candle at every end. And I found out that Saturdays she would go to the office and she was cleaning the office and taking out the garbage. And it just didn't occur to her that there were people that could do that because she didn't have any management skills. And just asking someone to do something made her feel uncomfortable on the inside. Like she felt like she was demanding. She had 7 employees and she was doing all of their jobs and hers. So she'd focus on sales for a minute. Sales would go up, revenue, and then she'd turn around and focus on delivery and fulfillment. And then sales would go down and fulfillment would get better. And then she'd turn, and every time she'd put her attention somewhere, it got better. And on Saturday, the office looked better because she would go in herself and clean it. So we looked at her revenue and divided by 2,080. So her total annual revenue divided by 2,080, gross margins rather, divided by 2,080, which is the number of hours in a full-time work year, and came up with a number that's about $400. And I told her that that is your hourly rate after cost of goods sold. And she about fell out of her chair. She thought that she had no idea that she was worth that much money, that she could earn that much money. So we started to look at anything she was doing that was less than $400 an hour in value. So guess what one of the first things that went out the door was? Cleaning the office on Saturday. I said, do you think there's anybody in LA where she was based that would like to come in and clean your office, that could probably do a better job than you, that would be very grateful and appreciative of the work, that could probably do it in 2-3 hours in a weekend, that you could pay, and you come into an office that's clean, they get a little bit of income, and that's what they do. And she said, well, duh, of course. So immediately, that's the first thing that went off of her plate. And we just started systematically going up the list. What else? You're doing this, you're doing this, you're doing this. We found out quickly that there was a few people that weren't really contributing to the team at all. They were quickly moved off the payroll, and the other 4 people, they started to pull their weight a little bit better. Like when you focus on that leadership that Andrew was mentioning, when you start putting, you practice and learn how to delegate, and you really put some energy into that process, you got to schedule it. It doesn't just happen. Like you have to have some awareness, and you have to be intentional about how you're doing it. The tide starts to rise. And as the tide gets higher, the ships can all float higher with it. So that's how I would look at some of the money. And if you don't know, Andrew, it sounds like based on some of these questions that, well, I have something that would be beneficial potentially for you guys with those questions. If you would like to take, I have something called a Founder Freedom Playbook, which is our first starting point with anybody that I coach, that I go through this process with, that breaks down some of this, helps you calculate your hourly rate, and it shows you exactly what kind of tasks that you delegate first, which have the lower barriers of things going wrong, the lower costs to them. And I'd be happy to share that with anybody who would find that useful. Just come over to Instagram, follow me at It's Justin Lund, and just DM me the word Andrew Playbook. And I'll know that you heard it here, and I'll just send it to you. It's just a Google Doc. It's our internal doc that I use for my team here, and I use it with all my clients, and you guys can have it absolutely free if that'd be helpful.
Okay, cool. And yep. So definitely, I think that, you hit on some critical stuff, and that's part of the show. Where are they going to learn this from? Because most business owners are in their business all the time working, but you've got to figure out ways to, as Franklin Covey would call it, sharpen the saw. That's and right. Be able to develop your skills and become a better leader. And I really liked how you put it. A lot of people try to hire people that they shouldn't hire when they shouldn't hire. Mm-hmm. And most of those hires are unsuccessful, not necessarily because of the person, but because you didn't give them what they needed to be successful. Yep. You didn't hire the right person, the person to do the right job. Maybe you shouldn't be hiring for that job, and especially salespeople, because a lot of us have an inferiority complex, and you're like, oh, I'm not good at sales. I need a salesperson. But you're usually the best salesperson your organization could ever have. Yep. So don't, you want to be careful about wasting money on, expensive people who aren't able to deliver for you, usually because of you.
That's right. And there's a formula that we go through in our Founder Freedom Playbook that kind of helps you get clear on this. So, if you've got $10 million a year in annual profits, 80% of what I just said, you can throw out the window. The same philosophy still holds true, but you don't need to start down low on that pyramid. You can start way much higher up because you have cash, you have resources. So if you want to bring in a CEO and make all of what we're talking about their job, and you have the money, okay, let's have that conversation. But most of the people that I talk to, it's really based on revenue, Andrew, is what I find. When you're in that range, and I often see it, depending on the business, it could be around 500,000-600,000 up to 1.5, 2.5 million even. That's the range where people are often the most often feeling the strains of the capacity ceiling just starting to come down, kind of pressing down on them. And that's where you're wearing all the hats. You've got some employees, you've got revenue, and you've got goodwill with this business, but you're also, there's some skills and there's some saw sharpening, as you said, that needs to be done. And that's what a lot of people miss. So with this woman that I mentioned, one of my clients, our goal first was to get her 5 to 7 hours a week, like immediately. Can I get back in your life 7 hours, like a full work day? If I can get as close to a full work day, you feel that. I mean, you're like, whoa, this is a lot. This is a big deal. Now with that, I want some of that time to go to Little League, or to, in her case, it was like she was not taking care of herself. So we actually told her to schedule a pedicure. We scheduled it for her, to be honest. We scheduled it twice a month. She'd get a pedicure. And then she focused more of that time in sales, more of that time in business development, because she's a master at that stuff, right? And then there was a couple hours a week that we put into sharpening the saw. But when you have it and you see your calendar visually change, and now you have less, and we have some free spots in there, let's put some stuff in there to actually sharpen the saw and gain some of those skills. And now, here 2 years later, here she's sold a business for millions of dollars. She now travels around. She has a place in California and a place in Florida, and she travels back and forth, invests in real estate and other business investments, and just because she has the skills. She invested in development of the skills and sharpening her saw. And now she's got a lot more options than she did a few years ago.
Definitely. So, and one thing I created, and won't go into it too much, but I created what we call the Masterpreneur playbook.
Mm-hmm.
That outlines the 5 steps from startup to scaling a business. And I think it gives a good visual of what it really takes. And I'm just going to put real quick, there's 5 steps that you got to take to go from startup to scaling your business. But at each of those steps, you have to evolve as a leader to be able to take the business through each step. So at each of the 5 steps, there's also 5 evolutions that you have to go through. And, at each step, there's a different, each of those evolutions, you got to build a structure and you got to develop certain skills. And if you don't do that, you're not going to make it through the step.
Mm-hmm.
So, definitely, this what Justin's talking about, what he's experienced, what he does for other people, it's the secret if you want to create a scalable business and really create an enterprise. So, one of the things that's tough about this show is like an hour is just not enough time. When we have great guests like you, we can talk about this for days.
I'm just recording right now. Yeah, let's go.
But our audience, probably can't, isn't willing to hang out with us that long.
Yeah.
But we did cover a lot of really valuable stuff. And what I want to do is if you would share 3 key things that people should take away from what we talked about tonight that really just helps them to really know what to focus on. And also, like a lot of people can't remember more than 3 things anyway, so we don't want to overwhelm them. So I know
I can't. That's for sure. So okay.
Yeah. So I'll give you a minute, and what I'm going to do actually is we just launched our new book last week. So I'm going to put a short video on about that, and then once that's over, we'll come and hear about the 3 key takeaways.
All right.
Hi, Andrew here, and I'm excited to announce the launch of our new book, 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey. 5 years, 33 incredible guests, hundreds of powerful business lessons, And now it's all in one place. Introducing 99 Proven Tips to Accelerate Your Masterpreneur Journey, a brand new book built from the insights, wisdom, and strategies shared by the guest experts of our podcast, Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Inside, you'll discover actionable tips on how to launch smarter.
So if you have an idea that you have researched and you know who your customer is and you think that you've got the experience you need, now is a perfect time to start a business. But remember, start as a side hustle first.
Grow faster.
So sales is about problem solving, not about manipulating. You have to understand the math of your business, the sales math.
Lead more effectively.
You shouldn't expect someone to be you. You have to understand and create processes to basically train people on how to handle certain situations and basically set people on the right path, right? So they can become successful within your organization.
And scale your business with confidence.
Bet on yourself and not be afraid to take risks and to know that you have within you the ability to accomplish your dreams and accomplish your goals.
Think like an entrepreneur. Now, I know there may be many entrepreneurs listening, but there may be some who aren't entrepreneurs. It's all well and good. I'm here to say entrepreneurship is not just something you do, it's a way that you think. And the characteristics of an entrepreneur's thinking are creativity, resourcefulness, courage, resilience, and passion.
This isn't theory, it's practical advice straight from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who have done it. 5 years of conversations, 33 voices of experience, and now 99 tips to accelerate your masterpreneur journey. Get your copy today. Pre-order now to reserve your signed copy. Click the button below or scan the QR code to order from www.sbprou.com/99-tips. Okay, welcome back to Leadership Live. I'm here talking small business with Justin Lund. Our topic tonight is unleash your potential and win at a higher level. We had a great conversation. Justin shared some valuable stuff, but before we close out, we want to make sure that you have the key things to focus on based on what we discussed tonight. So what would you say people should focus on?
Yeah, I think I want to encourage everybody to focus at least a portion of your time and your energy and your attention on you and your time. We get caught up in these traps of I got to grow the business, I got to solve this problem, I got to hire this person, which is all valid. I'm not saying it's not valid, but make sure that you focus on, I would say winning is getting your time back to do what you want, to get freedom to choose how to use your time, not just what your phone says you can do. So you decide. So I'd say that's number one. Focus on getting your time back, getting the freedom to choose how you use your time. Number two are systems or frameworks. Don't make them complicated just for complication's sake, right? Find anything that you can string together A to B, B to C to get the same result. If you can do that and save yourself time, energy, money, that's a system to start with. You can always add complexity to it later as you grow, as you scale, as things morph. But if it doesn't need to be there, Elon Musk said this, like he spends half his time like trying to strip things out. And people build stuff that are not necessary and he strips it away. So focus on just the minimum viable product first and then add to, if necessary, later. And I'd say third, and maybe the most important, delegate in the right order. Do not jump up to sales. Do not jump up to leadership. Start with administrative stuff. Figure out what your time's worth. Come talk to me if you need some help with that. We can sort you, no problem. And then start practicing with these kinds of tasks where failure doesn't have a huge price tag. It's not going to destroy your business. You can practice letting go, which you probably need a little practice with. You can practice delegation skills. You can practice framework creation. And remember ChatGPT. That's your, I like to say it's your sparring partner. That's what I tell my team. You should be fighting with ChatGPT all day long with this stuff. So build a framework, build a system, build this, tell it, give it a lot of context. That's a good starting point. But start in admin. Don't start in the bigger, higher, riskier, higher price tag items.
Excellent. No, very valuable. Definitely your time is your most valuable resource. It may not seem like that when you're not selling enough stuff, but but it is still, and you got to figure out how to sell more stuff.
Think of it this way: like if you're sitting there pulling levers all day long, metaphorical levers, and you're answering phone calls, you're taking complaints, you're dealing with customer service issues, are you spending 3 hours a day pulling $10 levers? Because you're probably the only one in the business that could pull $10,000 levers. And what you want to do is get your time back so you can spend 1-2 more hours a day pulling a $10,000 lever. That's how you grow your business, not crazy complicated schemes necessarily. Just get your time because you have the problem solving skills to unlock the next level.
Yep. And, so definitely that. A big turning point for me was I just managed my life and my business by the calendar. So, having that discipline and, managing your time, you own your time, you make decisions. So then you got systems and frameworks, but the KISS method, it's simple, so that a stupid person could understand it or whatever. We'll say something a little different in the Navy, but same meaning.
Gotcha.
So that's cool. And like you said, a framework or system could even just be a list. Do this, do this, do this, and do this. And then you give it to somebody and let them do it. You delegate it to somebody. So so very important. And then doing things in the right order. Like you said, delegate in the right order, the right things in the right way. And it's a learning experience. It's like you don't give your kid their first car, brand new Mercedes. Give them a Beetle so they can understand, like, okay, well, if I crash it a little bit, it doesn't matter, or I don't change the oil and ruin the engine or whatever else.
You got a 1990 Ford Ranger. That's just yes, exactly.
So I mean, I think it's a journey. You continue to learn.
For sure.
This has been amazing, Justin. So thank you for taking your time.
My pleasure.
Schedule.
I got to say, as you were talking, I thought of one more thing. So I can say number 4. I would say one unlock. When you said you manage your time, I found that I'm not even the best manager of my time. So I have my assistant manage my time. They do way better than I do. Because I think about stuff too much. And they're like, oh, I'll just put it here. Boom. So that's next level stuff that is just phenomenal, because then it's just not, you get out of your head a lot. So that's fun stuff.
Yeah. Definitely. I'm working on that, but, I've got my journey too. So,
you got it.
but it's all good. So, also thank you for, sharing about your Instagram. That's in the chat. So if people want to get that resource from you, definitely encourage you. Also, Justin's LinkedIn profile is in the chat, so you can check him out there, connect with them, and his website, so you can see more about kind of what he's doing and how he does it. So thanks again, Justin, for joining me. Anything you want to share before we close out?
No, I think we covered it. It's been great to be here. Thanks for having me again, Andrew, and hope I answered that. I know there were some more questions we didn't quite get time for, so anything you can ask me. Instagram, that's probably where we put up more of our content, so that might be a good place to get some of those questions answered. And I'm personally in the DMs over there, so just drop me a message. I'm happy to chat with you over there. If we didn't cover your question here, we can do so there. No big deal.
Okay, excellent. So thank you again. If you can hang out, I'm just going to close things out, and we'll go from there. All right. Once again, always appreciate you guys hanging in and join us in the evening. really enjoyed talking to Justin. We have some, exciting stuff coming up throughout the rest of the year. So, definitely tune in. As we started the year, we said we're going to make 2025 your best year ever. So this is the time. Many businesses sell more in the fourth quarter than they sold all the rest of the year. So even if you're not making your targets now, that doesn't mean you can't make 2025 your best year ever. It's time to focus and get the help that you need if you need help to be able to do it. But it is possible, and now's the time to do it. So, so thanks again for tuning in. And, always remember, at the end of the day, the more that you know, the faster and more successfully your business is going to grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 805, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.